Drivers, start your engine!
It's going to be a drag race. Wow! What a finish!
Logano takes the championship for the third time.
Well, back again, NASCAR Inside the Race, post-Atlanta edition. I'm your host, Steve Letarte. Alongside me, once again, my booth mate from NBC, Jeff Burton. Jeff, Atlanta, is it fair to say this is what I've come to expect from Atlanta? Unbelievable racing. We're going to unpack that. We're going to unpack how Christopher Bell won, only leading the last lap. But maybe the biggest story is he wasn't even technically leading at the start-finish line because the yellow came out before. I was frustrated. I know the fans have questions. We're going to definitely break that down. How did Team Penske not win the race with as good as Joey Logano was? And Kyle Larson looked like he was going to get that first kind of super speedway breakthrough. Him and Cindric get together, causing the yellow, which brought out the green-white checkered. So a lot to unpack. Let's start with the high points. Racing, breathtaking. Atlanta, I still think the number one ticket in NASCAR.
Yeah, Steve, it's turned into a great race. And I think, one of the reasons why is because Daytona and Talladega are primarily wide open, right? Handling is really not that big of an issue. So if you listen to the drivers, they say they feel like, things are out of their control. But when you go to Atlanta, if your car handles better than somebody else's and you can drive it better, that's an advantage. But it's still a drafting style racetrack. It reminds me a little bit of Daytona back in the 90s when it got really slick and we were sliding all over the place. It reminds me a little bit about that. And I think the older it gets, the more it's going to get like that. So incredible race today. And I think when you couple it with last week's race, the Daytona 500, 105 lead changes in the first two races. It's the last lap passes on both races. I think when you look at the two of them together, we've gotten off to an incredible start. And Atlanta, to your point, it's must-see television, right? We go there and watch it in person, and we don't know what to watch. There's so much going on. So it's just a fun racetrack right now.
Yeah, the green-white checker. This is what it looked like. The front row was the 5, Kyle Larson, the 1 of Ross Chastain, the 77 of Carson Hocevar, who was a newsmaker all in himself all day long. He was kind of good, bad, and then the ugly had a little bit of everything. I'd love to give Bell credit for some amazing move. It was a great move, but it was really just patience, I guess. He stayed in the outside line. The 5 had to block the bottom. And next thing you know, Christopher Bell goes on to win. As I mentioned, only leading 1 lap. But the story of the day and the story leading the day for me was not who won, but how the race finished. The caution flag frustrated me. This is a story that has continued from Daytona. I really wish that story would go away. I'm going to try to recap. We have the duels. The yellow comes out before the line. We have to go to the camera. Then the 500, no yellow. We then go to the start-finish line. It carries over to Atlanta. Last night in the Xfinity Series race, there was a conversation about what the caution should be. Then tonight, there's another caution. So it's not a 2-man team, but a 3-man team. While Jeff and I are enjoying our offices in our home, watching the great coverage on Fox, Kim Coon has been down in Atlanta all weekend long. We're going to welcome her in. She can join the program. So Kim was on the coverage Saturday for the CW, which was amazing for the second week in a row. Kim, great job. But you didn't get to go home. Nope, we asked you to stay. You hung out on Sunday. Hell, I know you were part of the drivers' meeting. So I'm the fan here. I'm frustrated. I thought I was going to get another, photo finish. But you tell me that there was some conversation in the drivers' meeting. It's very vital, this topic of conversation. So bring me in to Sunday morning in Atlanta and what you had to see and what you had to say.
Yeah, I hosted the drivers' meeting today. And for a fan that doesn't know what the drivers' meeting is, we recognize dignitaries, but it's also an opportunity to reiterate the rules for the race that runs that day, as well as if any other competition elements come up. So they ran the rules package video. Drivers watched that. And then after that, Senior VP of Competition, Elton Sawyer, got up in front of everybody, and every driver has to be there, and said, and I quote, "Based on last night's race, our goal is to finish our races under green conditions. That is our number one goal, but we are also not going to race through a debris field. So you can expect the caution to come out based on last night. That was on us," he said. And then he continued, "If a situation comes up like last night, there will be a caution." And like you alluded to, Steve, last night in the Xfinity Series race, the race stayed green as Austin Hill crossed the line to win. Now, it did come out shortly after Hill crossed the line, but a few cars had to drive through incidents on their way to the start-finish line while that green flag remained out. So to your point, we've seen some inconsistencies, for the beginning of this season, and then even as we look at last year.
So, Jeff, I'm going to bring you in, and everybody knows the work you do on NBC, but I'm not sure the fan understands all, your second job. Jeff's got a lot of side jobs, right? So the side job is that he helps represent the drivers in their communication with NASCAR for a lot of key things on and off the racetrack. But that gets Jeff into a lot of these meetings, a lot of these discussions. So for me, Jeff, what I don't love is when they say our goal is to finish under green. I wish it was our goal is to be as safe as possible. I just don't love that lead in. I think it misleads me as a race fan because, I'm a little quick thinking and I just quit listening to the second half of the statement. I hear we're going to try to finish under green and I throw my hands up. That's not what we saw here. I was losing my mind. You talked me off the cliff on the text thread and said it ended how you expected. I need more. Why were you so confident this is how it should have looked and this is how it did look?
Well, so let's start back at Daytona. We certainly saw inconsistencies at Daytona. You mentioned them before, the difference between the duel and then again in the 500. And then there was actually conversations at Atlanta about what do cautions look like and at Atlanta. And I want everybody to think about something for just a moment. Atlanta is a much smaller racetrack than Daytona and Talladega. And so if you think about how you can roll safety cars, how you get rescue to the driver. You at Atlanta, the track is so much smaller. If you start wrecking down the back straightaway, you have to wait for everyone to get slowed down before NASCAR can send a safety vehicle. Last night in the Xfinity race, which Elton in the drivers' meeting and also to the drivers privately said that was a mistake. And the reason that was a mistake is because drivers had to drive through the wrecking cars and they had to wait to send safety until the cars came all the way around the racetrack because the racetrack is so small. So when you start thinking about it from a safety perspective, Atlanta is different than Daytona. And so when the discussion was about, okay, how is it going to look at Daytona? We had these two different things at Daytona. What are we going to do about that? But here we are this weekend in Atlanta. What do we do about this? And the agreement was, hey, let's let these two, the truck race, Xfinity race, let's let that get done. Let's see what happens. Let's reconvene. That's exactly what happened. And the decision was made, hey, that was a mistake. We should have thrown the caution for two reasons. Number one, that wreck last night and tonight's wreck happened in front of a lot of cars. Josh Berry was running fifth when he wrecked.
Well, so let's see the wreck. To your point, if you're
it.
listening to the pod, I'm going to kind of show you what we have. We're looking down the backstretch. The 21 of Berry comes up, collects Logano, goes down the track. Another heavy contact with the 60, Jeff, to your point, slides down into turn 3. Another big hit. And maybe that's why I had this frustration because I didn't get to see this on TV. Right, so this wreck that you're seeing right here on the show, if you're listening, I can describe it again. There's 4 or 5 pretty big hits for the 21. I didn't see that live. Maybe that's why it took me a while to see the accident. I didn't even know they were wrecking. Maybe that was some of my emotion. But Jeff, to your point, pretty big debris field and a pretty big wreck in a 3.
Yeah, he's wrecking. He makes impact, and then he comes back across the field, and he's doing that in front of cars that are racing for position. And so what you want to encourage drivers to do is to lift, right? You want them to lift and not get in a wreck. And NASCAR last year, Steve, we saw this many times. They started changing the way they line up cars to incentivize drivers when as soon as the caution comes out, to lift. We're going to lock you in your position. Right?
And now listen, for the fan at home that says, oh, they're lifting because they don't want to wreck, you don't know race car drivers. They're not lifting. If they don't hear the word yellow, the man we're talking to, Kim, he's told us a million stories, right? Like if they don't hear the word yellow, they're wide open. They don't lift. There's a reason I was never a driver, right? They're wired different.
Yeah, and it's not in a good way. So what happened today, in my eyes, is a great opportunity to actually start consistency. NASCAR said, this is what we're going to do, and that's what they did. They said it publicly. They said it to the drivers. The drivers were in a conversation about this, what was safe, what wasn't safe, the conversation with NASCAR and the Drivers' Council about the safety, how you roll safety, all of that goes into play. And every single racetrack is going to be different. So I think one thing the fans have to understand, that a caution at Daytona may look different than a caution at Atlanta, and it's because of the racetrack, and it's because of where it happens. You have to get safety rolling to the driver. And there's openings in the inside wall that allow you to do that. If it happens on the front straightaway, the safety has to go against traffic in many cases.
Right.
So all this stuff gets into play. So today was a step in the right direction of saying, this is what we're going to do and doing it. Now, I understand fans don't get behind the scenes. I get it. I understand they probably didn't know about that conversation. Dustin Long reported it on NBC.com. He reported it. It was public that it happened. And so I get the frustration. But today was actually a good thing because it can build on this as far as consistency across all three series and across consistency of racetracks. Again, it doesn't mean it's going to look the same at Atlanta as it does at Talladega. The racetracks are different, and that has to be a consideration.
Well, shout out to our man JB here giving us the inside. And how about Dustin Long being ahead of it with a story? Kim, so I also want to give some accolades. I thought Fox did a really nice job. They had that shoot of the little yellow light, and they gave us the lineup. It wasn't very close, but they did pay off a clear win for Christopher Bell, right? It's right here. He's a half a car ahead. So I guess my question to you, Kim, that was clear for us on TV. How about at the racetrack? Take me into the media center, wherever you saw the end of that race. Was there confusion? Did everybody feel like it was pretty clear? Like, it sounds like the drivers were plugged in. How about everyone and the fans there? Do you think they knew who the winner was in a pretty timely manner?
Yeah, I think in a timely manner. Now, I think that they were waiting. Everybody kind of held a collective breath. I decided I wanted to watch the end of the race from pit road. So you kind of have to pick and choose what pit box you're at because anything can happen at this style racing track. And so I elected to be in the 5 box. The caution comes out. I hear Cliff Daniels tell Kyle Larson the finish is under review. And everybody's kind of waiting. So at that point, I decided I was going to run down to the 20 box to just kind of gauge their reaction. And we've just seen this movie too many times that teams in a race like this, where it is so close of a finish, they don't want to get ahead of themselves and start celebrating. So both the 5 team and the 20 team were 2 boxes. I kind of saw their reactions. Everybody holding a collective breath until they finally declared the winner. And even then, the 20 team was like, "Are we sure?" Because they don't want to celebrate prematurely like we've seen other teams do, and then be utterly disappointed if it flips the other way.
Well, that's great. A little overshadowed, but I don't want to overshadow. Oh, look at you!
I have to say, I did steal a peach. They have a big basket of peaches that they give the winner in victory lane, and
Hey, this wasn't part of our rundown. I'm going to ad lib. Producers love that. I mean, this reconfiguration has breathed new life into Atlanta Motor Speedway. Is that fair to say, Jeff? I mean, we love the racing there. The drivers love the racing there. But you and I have covered some races there that they didn't feel like they should, right? There wasn't the crowd. There wasn't the event. So Marcus Smith, SMI, NASCAR, the drivers, because they put it all on the line every single lap. They could easily just kind of cruise, but they did nothing of the sorts. I feel like this configuration, like I said, I think it's the #1 ticket in NASCAR.
It's turned into a great ticket. And, you would hear the drivers, and look, I was one of them. I loved racing at old Atlanta. It was so much fun, but I'm sorry, the fans the last several years just haven't been coming, and many more fans are coming with this event. We've seen that, and most of the drivers, look, if you get in a wreck, you hate it, right? But Christopher Bell, who's just not a guy that likes drafting racetracks, he's like, this one's actually fun. Like, I actually enjoy this one, and I think that's because of what we talked about earlier. You feel like there's some of it's in your hands, right? You're able to come out of the gas. You could see, I mean, they talked about it on the broadcast today. If you're watching the race, any kind of race, almost every time the drivers lift off the throttle, it shoots flames out of the exhaust pipe. And all day long, you can see flames flying out of the exhaust pipe. And you don't see that at Daytona and Talladega that often. So it's a drafting track, but it's not the same type of drafting track.
I want to add too. You know that it is a hot ticket when it is freezing outside and the fans still show up. It was absolutely cold all weekend long. There were fans everywhere. Now, they did have layers on. I had layers on. And to prove it is a cold race, the first thing you need to look at is what the pit crews do in between stops. If they keep their head socks on and their helmets on, that proves that it is a cold race. And it was cold out here today. It was cold all weekend, and the fans still showed up because Atlanta has become a hot ticket.
Well, Christopher Bell got the breakthrough win. I thought it was going to be Kyle Larson's win. You talk about a cool racetrack. Well, it wasn't cool on the racetrack. There were some disagreements about some of the accidents. We're going to break down the Larson-Cindric wreck that brought out the caution for the green-white checker. So you see right here, Larson on the bottom, kind of up the racetrack, and in my opinion, just runs the two out of the racetrack. I'm not saying egregious. I don't think he went in there with the plan of wrecking the two. He didn't run him over from behind and spin him out. But I think that in retrospect, and Larson even said it in his interview, he said, that one's my fault. He gave Austin Cindric no options, Jeff, in my mind. So I like when it's door-to-door racing, I like that if I'm going to run you high enough, I'm at least give you some options. I don't even think Cindric had the option to lift. I think it would have had to happen, 50% of the way through the corner, not that far on exit. I think even lifting, he would have gotten the same wreck.
Well, look, Austin Cindric's got to be the most frustrated man in racing right now. He was in position to win the Daytona 500. He was in position to win this race. He is doing an incredible job. And as far as running well, gotten off to a great start to this year, but this right, and he got in a wreck at Daytona too. So I know he's exceptionally frustrated, and he deserves to be. And Kyle said it. He made a mistake. He ran up into the wall, but that's what happens when you're protecting your position. He does not want Austin Cindric to get on the outside of him. He does not want to get too wide, and he just messed it up. He just overestimated the amount of space that he was given Cindric.
Well, he messed it up, but they're processing, a ton of information. Kim, I asked you, hey, what it was like down there? What was different? And you said instantly what jumped out to you was spotters. You listen to as much scanner as anybody I know with as much work as you do on pit road. Bring the fan in. What do you mean by spotters? We hear them every week. They're almost nonstop at Daytona and Talladega. How can they be different in Atlanta? Yeah,
so that's a huge part of my job. And it's actually, if you're a fan at the racetrack, one of the most fun things to do is to chime in and listen to the team communication. But spotters, they're on the spotter stand, so they're high. We talk about the eyes in the sky, and they are relaying information to drivers about what's happening around them on the racetrack, where the momentum is building, and that sort of thing. And naturally, there is a lot more chatter on the radios from the spotters at a drafting track, and that's just the nature of the racing, because you'll have 2 and 3 wide for rows deep, and a driver needs that information. Now, if you think the spotters are busy at Daytona and Talladega, yes, they are, but they are 10 times busier at Atlanta. And I listen all day long. It is a drafting track, but like Jeff mentioned earlier, it is much smaller. It is not a super speedway in size. So things happen so much faster. The spotter talk is nonstop the entire race. The amount of information the drivers are consuming from their spotters, it is peaked. It's the most out of any track on the circuit. And your reaction time as a driver and a spotter honestly has to be so much faster here because things happen so quickly. So just thinking about all the information a driver is hearing from their spotter and what they're trying to pick out from, when I say nonstop, I don't know how the spotters even take a drink of water when they need it, because it is from start to finish, just constant radio.
Well, the beauty we do hear it a lot on television. Fox does a nice job, but we do it also on NBC. I do think that's a great way to kind of take the viewer into the locker room or into the headset. I'd love to hear what some NFL coaches say during the game as well. I wish I could kind of get a tap in, but because we cut this audio. So for the listener here, I want you to take a listen. This is basically a snippet of the 5 radio in this incident of Austin Cindric. I want to hear not only what he says, the cadence of how he says it, and just how much information and how quickly it's delivered to Larson.
Still there, quarter, you're clear. 24, still your help. Still there, tight to you. Clear, clear, clear. Still there. You're good. Wreck it behind you. Keep coming. Caution's out.
Well, you could connect the dots, right? We don't line it up over video because they're different time stamps. And to be fair to the team, a 1/10 of a second makes such a big difference. We're not going to guess where that audio is, but you can hear it, right? Who's your help? And then still there, then clear. Jeff, that's the middle of the corner somewhere where he feels like, the outside car has fallen back. And then you hear not only what he says, but you hear the cadence. Still there. Volume goes up, speed goes up. And that's like he sees it coming. Hey, man, hey, he's still out there. You're not going to make it. And they wreck. I think that's important because we cheat, Jeff. We have slow motion. It looks so easy frame by frame. we forget at 190 miles an hour, it's nearly a football field a second. Stuff's happening fast.
It's happening so fast, Steve. And you know, spotters do an incredible job. But to be honest, they don't always have the best angle. Like if you're standing where the spotter stand is, you're looking toward turn 4, it's really, really hard to, if it's tight. Like I can tell you, my son races, you know, on weekends, and I'm like, clear. 99% of the time I'd have got him wrecked. I mean, like I think he looks clear, but he's not. And so they don't always have the best angle. And ultimately, it's why I say it all the time. It's the driver makes the final decision. The spotter is given information, right? But the driver is the one. He's the only one who goes to Infield Care Center. He goes there by himself, and you know he's the one that makes the final decision. But those decisions are in milliseconds. They're not in seconds. They're not. Well, I'm gonna do. Like it doesn't work like that. It's I need to do this now, and that's how it happens. And you don't. Most of the time, it's a response. It happens so quick. It's a response to something. And you know, you have to understand too, the heart rate's through the roof. The race is coming to an end. You need that track position. You can't give that track position up. You have trained your whole life to be in a position to win this race. Winning this race gets me in the playoffs, puts me in a position to have a chance to win a championship. Does everything that I wanted to do my whole life. And it's 150, 130 degrees in the car. It's wild in there. It's not a ride to go get groceries. It is an intense environment. And drivers are making millisecond decisions. And we're going to make them wrong every now and then because you have to do things that most people wouldn't do. Most people wouldn't even consider making that block. I mean, you wouldn't do that on an interstate. You wouldn't even think about it, right? But you do it because it's a necessity of success. And sometimes you try too hard, you make the wrong decision, but you get yourself in that environment. It's a completely different feel and look than it is when we get to watch it on slow motion.
Well, Kim, I'm going to peel the Band-Aid off. Sometimes you're the windshield, sometimes you're the bug. So this is Kyle Larson's fault. I don't blame him. I don't think it was egregious. Like I said, I don't think his plan was to wreck Austin Cindric. His plan was to win the race, and wrecking Austin Cindric was kind of the what happened. That was the result. But if we go all the way back to Pocono, and I only bring this up because it's the same guy, other side, right? This is Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson exiting turn 1 at Pocono, and Denny Hamlin does to Larson exactly what I think Larson does to Cindric. Now, listen, Hamlin is nowhere near close to clear like Larson does. So it's not the same thing. But the concept of Hamlin giving Larson no option, right? It was like, hey, man, the wall's there. You're going to hit it. I am leaving enough room that a still picture makes it look like you could have fit. But in the realistic realm of racing, it wasn't going to work. Larson was upset that day. And I think Larson would be upset if Cindric was mad at him now. So, Kim, I'm going to pull you back in. And then I swear I'm going to let you get on the plane and go home. You don't have to live in Atlanta. But you cover these drivers on pit road. Is it crazy that, like, Larson was so upset at Pocono and he knows he made a mistake here? Is he expecting a call from Cindric? Like you deal with all the personalities on pit road. What are your thoughts?
You know, drivers never forget anything. And I think Jeff can attest to that. They never forget anything. And I'm glad you brought up the Pocono incident because I was the one that had to end up interviewing Kyle Larson after that race. And he was the most upset I think we've ever seen him talking about what Hamlin did. But he brought up 4 or 5 other instances. And so these racing incidents end up being compounded. And so do I think Cindric's going to call Kyle Larson? Maybe, but also maybe not. Now, if it happens again, if we see this happen and he doesn't give him space next week at COTA, then it starts to fester. And that's when we see these drivers finally having a moment, talking about how angry they are with the driver, expecting to have a conversation with the driver. But I also think with this style racing, it's drafting. I think there is a little bit more leniency because, you know, if you were listening to the in-car radios all race long, there were half a dozen drivers upset with 12 other drivers all race long. And that's more the nature of this style racing. So I think there's a little more leniency given on, you know, how mad they're going to be because of a racing incident here. But again, if it happens again and then it happens again, you can certainly expect a reaction from a driver.
Hey, Steve, you've had to make that super hard call that did work out or didn't work out. I've had to make that super hard decision that did work out or didn't work out. But you and I neither have ever had to ask a driver after he lost one of the biggest races, what happened?
Oh, I know.
I think that should be casualty pay. I think there should be some sort of reward.
Oh, no, I'm up there going, have Kim go talk to him.
Yeah.
See if Kim can talk to him. He looks super happy.
Oh, yeah,
Take me
Steve
to
and I,
it.
see, we're staring the pot up there. We love it.
Speaking of talk to him, Texas bound. We'll see you next Saturday, right? CW Coda.
Yep, I'll be there with my
All right,
cowboy
thanks,
boots.
Kim. So many good news stories from Atlanta. One news story that continues in 2025. How did Team Penske not win the drafting race? For the second week in a row, it looked like Joey Logano was the dominant car. Oh, Team Penske. Good news. Fast. I mean, really fast. And I'm going to throw the Wood Brothers 21 car in there. I'm not going to get into it. But if you don't know and you're new to NASCAR, Wood Brothers is their own team, but they have a contract that Team Penske basically builds and prepares those 21 cars. So I'm going to give them credit for all four. And they were great. Josh Berry was up front. It didn't work out. We just talked about Cindric's wreck. He was up front the whole time. Blaney had another good car. But the defending champ, Joey Logano, do we feel bad yet? I mean, 2 unbelievable weeks in a row where he's been in position. This one got away from him in the middle, Jeff. Did you think it was I don't want to say his race to win because it was going to be such a close race, but I think he would have been in that final picture if he wouldn't have lost his track position.
Yeah, I mean, certainly losing track position didn't help his case, and certainly he had a ton of speed. As you said, it all the Penske cars did. And, but once you got behind, we saw Blaney. We saw a few people use tires to get back up to the field, but they were kind of the only ones that had tires. When Logano got back in the field, there were a lot of other people around him that had tires, and it got 2 and 3 wide, and he just had nowhere to go multiple times.
Yeah, 180 miles an hour, but in the end, it looked like race traffic, right? You have to have a lane to go or you're not going to the front. All right, I'm going to get a little nerdy. I like my data. I like to nerd out a little bit. So if you're listening, I'm going to do my best to explain what we're going to show everyone on YouTube. And that is basically the line graph of Joey Logano's day. So I really like to look at someone's day without all of the cute replays and everything else. This is purely the data. So there's a lot on your screen. It's a finishing position. The top of the screen is leading. The bottom of the screen is 39th. The start of the race is on your left. It moves across the screen to the right side, which is the end of the race. The vertical yellow chunks are the yellows. The dotted lines are stage 1, stage 2. You see Joey Logano stage 1 runs pretty well inside the top 10 most of the day, ends up around 10th in stage 1, comes to pit road, does a nice job, flips to the front of the field. He now has the lead. He dominates stage 2. Now, where it really gets crazy is there's a couple yellows before stage 2, and they didn't do anything wrong. Paul Wolf didn't make a mistake. This was a conscious decision Paul Wolf knew he was making. He didn't want to give up track position. So at both lap 135 and at lap 149, Joey Logano stays on the racetrack. I think they had a chance staying out at 135 because only the back kind of half of the field pitted. But at 149, when it was so close to the end of the stage, so many people did what we like to call flip the stage, which is come in before. Remember, they know the stage end is coming and just in like 9 laps, fill up with fuel, take their tires, and they know they're going to stay out. Larry Mack mentioned this on the broadcast. That's what happened to Joey Logano. He took a car that finished 3rd and restarted outside the top 25. He tried to recover, but to your point, Jeff, he not only gave up his track position, but he didn't have a huge tire advantage because everybody in front of him had between 9 and 20 laps on their tires. The advantage of the fresh Goodyears just wasn't there compared to his teammate Blaney, who did it later in the race.
Yeah, and sometimes you just make the wrong moves. When you are back in that field and it's 2 wide and it's 3 wide, and he almost got there one time, and then he went to the bottom, and that move didn't work out, and that happens too, right? Because some other people were able to get up through the field and he wasn't, and some of that's just you think your line's going to move and it doesn't, and we see it in every drafting style racetrack. I heard several drivers in this race say, you know what? Whatever move I make is wrong. If I go left, I should have gone right. I mean, it happens in every drafting track. So I feel like that last segment of the race, he had kind of one of those things where he just picked the wrong choice multiple times. And you do that once or you do that twice, and now there's no more time left.
That's what happens. And look, I feel a little bad because he drove such good races, but look, that's what makes winning them so special. They shouldn't be easy. They don't just hand out trophies. You have to earn them. And one driver who was driving for a trophy trying to find his first trophy. And you're gonna hear this name a lot. And if you didn't know him before Atlanta, you've definitely heard the name now. But that is Carson Hocevar. He's a young driver, drives for Spire. You and I think, both have the same opinion on. Just got some raw talent. I mean, he finds speed in the race car. He always seems to be in the mix. Atlanta was a little mixed bag, though. A little good, bad, and the ugly. We'll start with the bad, so we end on the good. We'll start with the bad. I think the biggest mistake, or the most egregious one, was with Ryan Blaney, right? He gets a run on the bottom. We see the replay here. He catches the back of Ryan Blaney really late on the straightaway, almost basically turn one, hits him in the right rear bumper, sends Blaney for what may be the save of the year so far, as he gives this Joey Chitwood slide through 1 and 2 and then finally spins it out. We go on board, Jeff. Take me behind the wheel.
Yeah, you see he's gaining a high rate of speed, and he's trying to draft him right here or go on the outside of him. I don't know, I'm not sure which, but either way, I don't know if he was trying to bump draft him getting into the corner, but just didn't get lined up, hit him with too much speed and sent him around. And, and obviously Blaney frustrated with that, as he should have been. Yeah,
so Blaney goes and sees him after the race, has some words on Fox, and then I want to shout out Jordan Bianchi, who was on the spot on pit road with his phone to record a Blaney interview, and he asked him about the words with Hocevar.
Yeah, I mean, I just said, hey, you got to calm down. I told him a couple moves that he made earlier in the race that were really, really sketchy. Obviously, me getting spun, like, he should know better than to hit me in that spot. Like, he can't just run into my bumper as I'm turning into the corner, like I'm gonna wreck. So I just told him, you got to calm down. You got a lot of talent, but you got to be a little bit easier. In these certain moments, be a little smarter.
That sounds like a champ to me. I'm gonna be honest, Jeff. Right? Like we talk a lot about, we play his radio a lot because our man Blaney gets fired up over the radio. But he didn't go attack Hocevar, grab him by the fire suit. Didn't even look like he was yelling. Looked like he was having a conversation with him. And hats off to Ryan Blaney, who went over, sought out a younger driver, probably felt good to give him a little piece of his mind, but in a constructive way. Like, he gives him credit. The kid's fast, just make better decisions. And I think the one you talked about on the front stretch, we give drivers perhaps, credit sometimes, no credit other times, but that was a long developing rung down the front stretch to hit Blaney. That wasn't like a late lane change. A driver of his caliber, much like Blaney just said, should, I guess, quote, know better that you can't hit him at that point in the corner.
Yeah, and Blaney's just, when you're racing at this level, people expect, drivers expect you to, understand that. But I look, Blaney, I think said it really well. Like, just calm down. But that's his personality. Like, that's one thing that we've talked about a lot, Steve. You and I've had a lot of these conversations about different drivers, and their personalities come out when they're driving race cars. And he clearly is an aggressive. He's not afraid to ruffle feathers. He's not worried about making somebody mad. He's here to earn his way. And part of that I love. And it's a tough way to make a living. You have to be aggressive. You have to stand your ground. You can't take any crap from anybody, because if you do, they'll run all over you. And he has to find a better balance than what he's been able to find, I think, to have long-term success. But that's my opinion. He may not need to change anything and go win a bunch of championships. I think it'll be easier for him if he was able to harness it a little bit. And we've talked about it on many NBC broadcasts, right? But there's no question he has talent. But I think he wants to play along. I think he wants everybody to respect him. But I also think there's an edge about him that he's like, you know what? I know you guys you're swimming with sharks. And if I'm weak, you're all going to eat me. And he doesn't want that to happen. And he's just going to do it his way. I think that we shouldn't be surprised about that.
So I will say this. I think Blaney did say it well. And there are many times that if I was Hocevar's crew chief on Monday, we would review some tape and I'd be like, you can't do this. You can't do this, because that's part of coaching. But now, you know what he does? He does things with a race car that I don't have the ability to do. If I did, I'd have been a race car driver. Like the unteachables, the intangibles, the things that you just, when you talk to people like Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, even you, how are you fast? And you look at me like, well, I don't know. I drive in there and the car tells me to kind of do something and I do it. He has a lot of that. And I'm going to tell you, I didn't love what he had to say after the race. So one thing I didn't love is, man, I think I made a mistake. I should have went with the 5. So I disagree. If we go back to the backstretch, this is a driver going for the win. Nowhere to go left or right. Gives the 20 a monster shot, and then he just elbows up between the two of them, beating and banging. Now the yellow comes out, and we know the results of the race. And I don't even know if he would have won if it really would have probably came down to who the 47 pushed actually off turn 4, if you want to know the truth. In my opinion, Stenhouse might have decided the winner between the two outside cars. That is the blink of an eye thing you talk about. That is you don't telegraph that. You don't run that in a simulator. I don't care what you do. You only have so many chances to win the race. And what do you do in those moments? And I liked what I saw out of the 77 and the aggression, unlike the aggression I didn't like earlier.
Well, let's show that replay one more time, because you said it while you were just watching it. Like, where is he going to go? And I know that, they get help from Hendrick Motorsports, but when is he going to hang a left?
Right.
And help the 5 car? If he does, they're all wrecking. Like, if you really look at that, like, how is he going to do that? Like, where is he going to slide right in front of Blaney? Like, think about the timing of that. And if he does, where is he going to hit the 5 car? In the right rear quarter panel. What's going to happen? They're going to wreck. So I don't think the opportunity was there to help the 5 car. I understand what he's saying, and I also agree with you. I think that at this point in the race, you're trying to win the race for you and your race team. And I think he did everything in his power to go do that. And I 100% support a driver going out and trying to win the race for he and his team. It is so hard to win these races. And it means, more than it's ever meant in the history of our sport to win a race. And I don't blame a guy for going and trying to win the race. And I think that if anybody looks at that and says you should have helped the 5 car, they need to really look at that again and understand, had he been trying to help the 5 car, that would have resulted in perhaps Blaney winning the race. Because they all wreck if he tries to make that move, in my opinion.
Well, if you're a fan tuning in and you're looking for a guy to cheer for, and you like a good-looking kid who's got great personality, always making jokes, and also fast and has a great career ahead of him, I think Carson Hocevar can be your guy, because he definitely is an enigma, man. He is going to be in the storyline, good or bad. But today was about Christopher Bell. For the 10th time in his career, he went to victory lane. 10 times is the big thing, double digit, right? That's a big deal for me. 30 years old. He's become an anchor at Joe Gibbs Racing. Toyota, Joe Gibbs Racing, everybody knew Bell had potential. We've seen it in other forms of racing. We've seen it in the Xfinity Series. A lot of people have leaned in. Bell's done it his own way. He struggled with some pit crews over his years. He struggled with a bunch of different things, but he continues to find a way to do it. And Jeff, you talk about kind of swimming with sharks in the series of Cup. I will tell you, I grew up at Hendrick Motorsports. I know how hard it is when your biggest competition at times is in the building. I think Bell has done a really nice job, not just surviving, but thriving in an organization where he's lined up against future Hall of Famers time and time again, and is slowly building one of those style careers himself. Always makes the championship 8 or 4, wins different style of races. He's won early now. I know he's not mathematically locked in. I'm going to say he's pretty well locked into the playoffs. I feel pretty good about his year. What should we expect? Like I said, if you want to cheer for somebody, cheer for Hocevar. Well, listen, if you like a proven winner, cheer for Bell.
I think that last year was a defining moment for Christopher Bell. The Martinsville event, where the shenanigans happened in Martinsville. He at Phoenix, the last race of the year, wasn't eligible to run for the championship. His quote was, "I feel cheated out of a chance to win a championship." That doesn't leave you, Steve. That doesn't go away. That feeling doesn't go away. What do you do with it? Right? What do you do with it? Do you stay pissed off, or do you use it as motivation? And I think Christopher Bell has got a complete bulletin board full of motivation in that. And he is super talented. That guy, from you and I watched him. I watched him race late models, 10 years ago. That guy can win races at any level, and he does win races at any level. Was a little quiet, a little, I don't want to say shy, but a little shy. But I think now he's comfortable in his own skin.
Yeah.
He wants to be a leader in the garage. He wants to play a role in making things better, and they pissed him off. And I think that makes him really dangerous. I think losing something, feeling like it got taken from you, you can do two things with it. And it's okay to be a victim for a little while, right? That's normal, natural. But at some point, you either stay a victim or you flip the switch and you become an attacker. And that's what he's become. And I think that moment will help define his career. And what he would define probably as one of the low moments of his career, when he looks back on it 20 years from now, I bet you he'll say that was a massive moment in his career because it gave him perspective. It gave him an understanding that this is, bad things can happen. And those things make you tougher. I mean, you get tougher by going through those kind of things. You do. And I think that he is going to be, from now until the time he ends up racing, he is going to be a force for winning championships, winning races, sitting on poles. If I'm starting a race team, he's on my roster. I can guarantee you that.
It's funny you bring that up because the guy's hand that he went and shook because he had, that shenanigans at Martinsville, in his opinion, had nothing to do with this other guy. He went and shook William Byron's hand, said, and kind of, put his stake in the ground and moved on. Then he went and had those comments at Phoenix, which to your point definitely showed his comfort. Well, if you want to talk about comfortable and dangerous, a race win in week 2, a lot of stage points, a lot of playoff points for an already fast 20 car, a race that he earned and a race that he won, but not a race that they had on their radar, even probably with 20 to go, right? And now that the trophy is theirs and they're filling their trophy case, I think that makes him more dangerous for more races for the rest of the year. So Atlanta in the books, more to come. Jeff, always good to break it down with you, buddy.
Enjoyed it.